All right, today is Friday, April 12th, 2019, and this is the Kubernetes CSI implementation meeting. Let's just jump right into our agenda. So PRs that need attention. What do we have here? This one is adding an operation timeout flag to the external snapshotter.
Yeah, I think we need another. I was just looking at. I think we need another timeout. Right now, there's one timeout we passed to the probe, and then there's another timeout we used to create this context passed to the CSI calls. Those two are the same. I think they should be different. I was just looking at the attacher,
Yeah, so I think
which is very similar.
in the
Mm-hmm.
attacher and the provisioner, we created a separate timeout value for the actual operations. Because I think we made it so that probe will just has an infinite timeout, and the actual like create volume or attach volume call has a second timeout value that it uses. And then there's the connection timeout, which is the amount of time we will wait to try
But
to initially
that's
connect to the
deprecated.
timeout.
But that one is
Yeah.
deprecated. I think. Yeah, it's not in effect anymore. That particular connection timeout thing.
Yeah. So I think basically once we switched over to use the new connection library, like the connection timeout flag is not useful anymore. And then we need a different timeout flag for the actual operations.
Right. Andrew?
So by operations, we mean like request timeout, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, that's hard coded. So I can add a flag to tweak that. It wasn't clear to me. Maybe I'm just reading this wrong. Like what exactly was requested here? But yeah, if it's just the request timeout, yeah, we can add a flag for that.
Yeah, I think it's just a request timeout. I think they were saying, because originally the code was using the connection timeout as the request timeout, which caused a lot of issues with that because the connection timeout, I think by default, is very short.
Okay. Are we okay with that name for the flag? Request timeout?
I would check what attacher and provisioner uses. I think they might just use timeout as the flag name.
Yeah, in attacher, I think it's just there's a CSI timeout and then there's just a timeout, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, timeout is the one, timeout waiting for attaching or detaching the volume. That's the timeout flag.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll follow up. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Next is deprecating the cluster driver registrar. Is Luis around? Okay, I'll ping him offline on that. Next up is external provisioners. So there was a change made to the external provisioner that required new RBAC permissions, and I've went back and sort of evaluated what is the issue that they wanted to fix. I discussed this with Jan and Matt a fair amount, and I think we concluded that the issue that they were trying to fix that required a new RBAC permission is not really it's not really a major or critical issue. So, and it's also potentially not fixing it in the best way. So what I've done is I've rolled back that change so that we can get rid of the new RBAC permission and we can still release the external provisioner as a minor version.
Yeah, and you were asking me on chat about whether the CI catches that, and it does indeed catch that problem with the ABAC rules in the canary jobs that we run periodically. So trying the canary images on the deployment 1.13 was failing for a while, and the latest build is green again. So your reversal actually fixed the issue, and VCI confirms that.
Cool.
And
Yeah, I'm just wondering if maybe we need to actually have like similar behavior for the pull jobs too. At least
Yeah.
the pull jobs for previous versions.
Then that would block you from making breaking changes, and that's why the pull jobs don't do that. So suppose you want to prepare a 2.0 version and you know that you need new ABAC rules, you then wouldn't be able to just make the change in the code and in the ABAC rules and be done with it. You would have to fiddle with job definitions and so on. And that's why it's not done. That's one of the post merge checks that basically brings up a red flag and says, well, here you have a problem, and try to find a solution and figure out whether you still want this job. That would be one thing. Say, for example, we figure out that Canary can't work on 1.13 anymore, then we turn off that job because it no longer makes sense.
I see. Okay, that's a really good point. Yeah. Okay. Then I guess we'll just have to leave it the way it is.
Yeah. And we are not catching, or that was part of our discussion. We are not really catching all potential problems in pre-merge jobs.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that myself. I want to have perfect testing in pre-merge, but you correctly pointed out that then pre-merging just becomes too slow or too intensive or work intensive in Brow that it just can't be done. So we have to try to fix or catch the important things, and then the full testing simply has to be in periodic jobs before release.
Yeah.
Or
okay.
While we develop, we basically have to keep paying attention to these periodic jobs, and in addition to the pre-merged things.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks. All right. Next topic. Change log and release notes automation. So Jan is starting an effort so that we can get closer to automating our release process. So we've made some great progress so far. We are pushing. Now we are pushing the container, building and pushing the container images automatically based on Git tags. So that's great. Next step is generating the changelog and the release notes automatically. So what Jan is doing is he's proposing to follow what Kubernetes does, which is when you create a pull request, you also fill in a release notes block in your PR, and then afterwards we can just run some release notes script or job to generate the changelog based off of all the PRs that have the release note tag on them. So he already started with modifying the pull request template for external attacher. If there's no objections, I think he said he's going to start checking in that pull request template to all the other sidecars. All right, I will take silence as approval. Next up, Ben, you had some items. Do you want to go through them?
Yeah. So I wanted to call attention to this this bug that was filed a while ago. Thanks, Patrick, for filing it. I think I was supposed to file this bug, and I don't know how much you guys talked about it at meetings when I wasn't here, but I have an opinion on how we can fix this that I posted to the issue. I don't know if you can scroll down. Yeah, so having thought about this problem, I don't think there's anything we can do in Kubernetes that wouldn't be horribly backwards compatibility breaking. But we can resolve this by making some slightly relaxing changes to the CSI spec. So my proposal is we leave Kubernetes the way it is and see if the CSI community is willing to relax the spec, because I don't think that there's another alternative that won't cause breakage.
Yeah, I think the only that sounds like a good idea to me. The only concern that I would see from maybe the CSI community is that by relaxing it, like it makes the driver sort of more complicated because now the driver has to handle both cases.
Yes. Well, but I mean,
And-
it is more complicated, but it's just an extra if statement.
Yeah, but if they forget about it and never test with Kubernetes, they won't notice or they won't know that they are incompatible with Kubernetes.
I guess
So
well,
yeah,
like
it's
now, but
well,
now
I-
Kubernetes is
I-
doing the right thing, right?
No,
No.
Kubernetes is doing the right thing for blocks, but not for file systems. But most drivers are for file systems, and most drivers I think are tested with Kubernetes, and so.
Oh, I
and
guess
no
is
one
the issue
no one complained. Yeah.
is the issue that let's see,
The issue comes down to who's supposed to create the directory for the node publish call, and the spec says that the CO should or must not do it, but Kubernetes does anyways.
So
And
then you're saying that can cause a driver to break because when the driver tries to create the directory, it'll get an error saying that the directory already exists.
yes, and I think almost all CSI drivers have been tested with Kubernetes, and they realize that Kubernetes doesn't do what the spec says, so they just work around it. Therefore, a relaxation of the spec won't matter to most drivers.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. I mean, I thought through all the different things we could do, and this seems like the least bad option.
I agree that is the least bad one. I was just playing devil's advocate here and I was pointing out why the CSI community might object against it.
Yes.
It's really a question of whether they will let us as the Kubernetes developers get away with not doing the right thing and basically pardoning that behavior by making it part of a spec. But that's, I guess, something that
I mean, I think the argument
we just have to
would
ask.
be that somehow this happened and the testing wasn't good enough to catch it, because what should have happened is if Kubernetes was violating the spec and we had a test fixture with that ensured spec adherence, we should have seen drivers failing.
Yeah. So I think going forward, like, I don't know if in the CSI community itself we need to like start investigating efforts for like CO compliance or something like that. But like until we have something like that, like issues like these are gonna come up.
Yes, I think the only way that we could really ensure CO compliance would be to have like an ultra strict CSI driver implementation, and then test the CO with that special CSI driver and expect it to work, and then the CSI driver would have to, I guess, enforce all of these conditions that are written into the spec. So yeah, what should have happened is there should have been a CSI driver that did fail when the directory already existed and said, hey, that's a spec violation, and that's on Kubernetes, and somehow that didn't happen.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Is this something that you would have time to bring up at the CSI meeting?
Well, yeah. I was going to say, if everyone's agrees that this is the least bad way forward, I can. When is the next CSI meeting? It better not be next week because I'm on vacation. But yeah, assuming it's sometime other than next week, I'll be happy to make the proposal that it would be better to just relax what's in the spec, and we don't expect any bad things to happen as a result of that, because Kubernetes has been this way from the beginning, and presumably a lot of drivers were tested.
Yeah. I think it's just
problems.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that like we didn't catch this until like we've already released everything, so our hands are kind of tied in terms of being able to fix this.
I wish we had more soak time before putting CSI 1.0 to GA.
Yeah.
but there was the rush to do that.
I think
This is the consequence.
yeah, I think going forward, SOD is looking at introducing like alpha, beta, GA phases into the CSI spec. That way, whenever we introduce something new to the CSI spec, we get more soak time and we have the ability to modify and change things
I mean,
after we go through testing and stuff.
in theory, that's nice, but I've been part of those discussions, and it doesn't sound like it's a panacea at all. It sounds like it just brings a different set of problems to try to do that.
Potentially. But at least like if we went through phases like that, then like it's not like once we introduce something to the CSI spec, it's set in stone and it's GA and we can't change it anymore.
Right. Yeah, we have to do something. I'm just not sure what that something is going to be and how much it will really help. We're always going to have these rough edges that we have to work around. So
yeah,
I guess the sooner we attack this one, the better.
Yeah, I guess maybe going forward, like in addition to proposing this change, maybe we should also propose like going forward, like what steps we can take to try to, avoid these kinds of issues again.
Yeah. Okay. It looks like the next meeting is going to be May 1st. So yeah, I can be there to do that proposal.
Okay. Excellent.
All right. The other thing I brought up is Go modules. I recently found out about Go modules and got very excited and tried to add support to CSI test. And then I realized that I don't really understand what the plan is on the Kubernetes community for Go module support and its interactions with vendoring and other and how automated builds happen. So I was hoping this group maybe had some advice on what is the right way to do Go modules and vendoring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know if there's like a right way. I think that's something the Kubernetes community is still figuring out.
Allegedly the right way is to stop vendoring and to use some sort of a caching, like a module cache in your build environment. But absent actually having a cache, we need to do something else. So
yeah, I think
we're already kind of not doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think right now the test infrastructure is not set up to have that caching thing, but it might be something that test infra is looking into.
Well, I asked on test on the Slack channel, and there's currently no such thing as a cache, which is why we kind of have to keep vendoring. Otherwise, CI builds will just be a lot slower and potentially flaky. I guess if we actually have multiple CI jobs which would benefit from a cache, SIG testing will perhaps at some point add a cache, but right now it's just not there. So we have to keep vendoring. That's my conclusion.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, are we talking about the caching mechanism that comes with Go or something else?
So yeah, Go 1.11 introduced Go modules, and the Go compiler will download the modules and cache them locally in your Go path. Actually, the problem is in an automated build environment that cache doesn't exist, and so it ends up having to download everything when you do your build. Now there are network level caches that serve the same function, that you can point your Go compiler and say, use this network cache, and that's the correct model for something like an automated build farm or a CI system, is to have a network cache that caches everything, and then all the different build jobs pull from that thing, so you don't have to have the vendor directory. I think the goal at the Golang community level is get rid of vendoring altogether. But
I see that Jordan is doing some work in Kubernetes. Yeah, so I think we probably should just look at what he's doing, and then once that's done, then we can just.
From what I understand, that KEP that Jordan introduced has already been approved and possibly be merged.
Yeah, so I think the way that it got implemented in Kubernetes is it's being phased in. So right now, like Go modules is still not required. but and they're still keeping like the GoDeps package around for backwards compatibility and like for people who are still using the older ways of vendoring. So they're like, it's a little complicated. It's not like a straightforward switch for the main Kubernetes.
Okay,
but I mean,
does someone have a link to that KEP? Because I'd like to take a look at it.
Yeah, in the I think Dick just put that in the chat. Did you see that?
Let me look.
In the Zoom chat.
Okay. Yes.
What I was going to ask is, if even without Go module, when you're doing in a CI environment, it has to do it. Whenever you're doing a build, it downloads all the dependencies anyway, right?
No, so today it uses the vendor directory.
Okay. So that sticks around? I'm just curious.
Well, we check in the vendor directory to the Git repo. It's part of
the I see what you're saying.
And hopefully we'll stop doing that someday, because it's always been kind of a silly thing to do, but there hasn't been a better alternative up until now. So
with Go module, you could still generate a vendor directory, which will kind of tie you over until you can.
So that's
what Jordan's actually doing. Is he's using Go modules to manage vendor now.
I see. Okay.
But that well, hopefully that's not the permanent solution, but it's at least a transitional solution.
Right.
With what we have. So maybe after everyone moves over to that, then we can start saying, okay, now it's safe to actually get rid of your vendor directory because we have proper caching set up, and maybe in a few more months.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Okay.
All right. Well, then that answers my question. I'm good.
Okay, so I guess for now, like if we want to go and try to start switching over to Go modules, we might still have to keep the vendoring for now, but we can at least be using the Go mod files to define all our stuff and dependencies.
Yeah, that's what my change to CSI test does. It keeps the vendor directory but uses Go modules to manage it. And
I haven't looked at your latest version, but one issue that we had in the past was that people made incorrect changes to the vendor directory, and that wasn't caught by our CI tests. So at some point I rolled out a test that uses depverify to catch mistakes in vendoring, and I'm not sure whether that still works with Go modules. Perhaps not the same way.
I think there is a way to do the equivalent thing with Go modules.
Okay.
But I haven't done that in my change. So if you see that we're still having problems with that test, we can work on fixing it. Because I did see that one test was still failing and it wasn't clear why. But I wanted to make sure that you were at least happy with keeping the vendor directory and using Go modules and what that looks like.
In general, I'm fine with Go modules. I'm a bit worried overall with the implication that Go modules have and some of the design choices. There is a very good article from the DEP author about social implications of how dependencies are specified. Because right now, the minimal version algorithm that Go modules use, they basically lock everyone on some fairly recent version. And that's not because the code depends on that version. It's just because that's what the module maintainer decided to use. And this one blog article, in my opinion, correctly points out various negative consequences of that approach, but I guess it's too late. That's just what the Go community decided to do.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that this debate is happening in the Go community, not necessarily in Kubernetes, and so
not at all. That's a Golang issue. Yeah.
They are thinking through this kind of stuff, and I thought that vgo and Go modules were actually relatively elegant solutions to the. I mean, what existed before vgo was terrible in my opinion, and I think that they're moving in the right direction. And maybe it's not perfect.
I personally think they have oversimplified the problem, and that will, once people start using that will lead to other issues that people just haven't encountered yet in practice. So it looks attractive initially because it's so simple, but I think it will have negative consequences. But yeah, that's just my slightly pessimistic view about the whole thing.
If you want to share that article, I'll be happy to read it because
I'm interested too. Because that discussion's been going on for quite a long time in the Go community.
Yeah.
I'll share that in a second in the chat.
Awesome. One more question I had on this. Does our CI currently uses Go 1.11 for building stuff? Is that right? Do we need to update it to 1.12?
That's what we have in the Travis CI YAML, and yes, that's what we are using for testing. We could bump that up and see whether anything breaks, and if not, we'll just update. So the process now is you do a change in CSI release tools, updating to a newer version, and you then merge that change into the different components, component by component. And if a pull request that uses the updated CSI release tools with a newer Go version passes, then you just merge that pull request, and that component then is up to date and works. And if that pull request finds issues, you also need to change the code.
Okay. I mean, Kubernetes is already requiring what, 1.12.1 or 1.12.2?
Yeah.
So
I can take VAR to update that. And the question perhaps in the overall is whether we now make the new pull the new. Actually, I think the Go thing that would be called by Travis. Perhaps I'm just jumping ahead myself here, but I think we now could also enable the brow jobs for all the other components. That's a status update on the CI work. We just made the brow testing mandatory in CSI test, CSI libutils, which already had a handcrafted job, but now we have the same one as in everyone else's components, and in CSI release tools itself. But these are the more simpler components because they only just do simple unit testing mostly. And all the major components, external attacher, external provisioner, they all have a brow configuration that works and the tests are passing. So yeah, I'm basically just reporting that, but we could theoretically now also say that these tests are mandatory, and that would also do then end-to-end testing on pull requests.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think once we see that these tests are stable, I think we can start turning them on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can just keep them as optional, and we can try them out on a few pull requests. But yeah, either way is fine. But I can take VAR to do the Go update.
So about the Patrick, see you have a PR for the protest for Snapshotter as well. I just wonder, should we get that merged before we cut the release, or is that, I don't know if what's the status for the other sidecar branches?
At the moment, we are just merging them as they become ready. I think it would make sense to merge it as soon as it's ready, and have it before the release has the advantage that if you branch, you have everything in place to do the testing, also in the branch.
Okay. Okay. I'll take a look of your PR.
All right. Excellent. All right. Anything else that anyone wanted to talk about Go modules?
I'm interested to see if that will help solve our dependency problems.
Oh yeah,
Snapshot and provisioner.
I'm thinking so. Like I watched. So Jordan gave a overview of Go modules. And that in the SIG API machinery meeting, which I linked to in that in the pull request. Okay. After watching his overview, I'm not so sure it's gonna solve our vendoring issues. I'm going to try and find some time to like set up some like really simple play example in my repository that sort of mimics the dependency graph that we have with external Snapshotter and stuff. And then I'll try to play around with it and see if it will actually help.
Okay. Where did you put his? In
this one, the
Oh,
the
okay.
CSI test pull
like,
request. I put a link to the recording.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Cool. All right. So digging into 114 stuff, I think in terms of code changes, like all the code changes are in. Now it's a matter of just the documentation and cutting the actual releases. So I think I think external provisioners should be ready, and Node driver registrar will be ready, and actually they are both, they don't need to be 2.0 anymore. They can just be 1.1, which is good. So I think these two are ready to cut. I will probably cut them today. And then for Snapshotter, I think we're still waiting for one change. Is that right?
Yeah, so we're waiting for Andrew's change because that one seems to be blocking some people from using Snapshotter. And then I think I was just asking Patrick about that prod testing. So it should be safe to get that one in.
Okay, excellent. So hopefully early next week or something, we can also cut the Snapshotter. After I cut external provisioner and Node driver registrar, I guess I will take a look at the liveness probe and see if we can cut that. Oops. Do that. And then after we cut all the sidecars, I guess then we need to update all the deployments in the host path driver, and then we can cut a new host path driver. So we're getting really close. I think in terms of documentation, I think there's two main pages that I'm waiting on. One is the resizing pages for the resizer, and then I also added a Kubernetes changelog page. This is basically trying to summarize in every Kubernetes version what are all the new features of CSI. Was it alpha? Is it beta? Are there any breaking changes between Kubernetes versions? That kind of thing. So if you're interested, please take a look at that. So that's all I have for 114. Moving on to 115. So let's see. Vlad, you have a number of stuff around the inline volumes, is that correct?
Yes, I have a few PRs floating around. Some of them you've already started to look at. I was out without internet for the past couple of days. I haven't touched them, but I'm gonna implement some of the changes you suggested, and then I have a new PR. I think you took a look at yesterday, which you reassigned to David and someone else. I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah. So progress is being made in factoring some of the internal stuff to support what we're trying to do.
All right. Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. So for raw block, we're going to keep it as beta this release, but I think what we want to do is just add more test coverage to it, both in the Kubernetes E2E tests and also the sanity tests. Ben, is this something you might have time to work on or coordinate?
Sorry, I was reading that blog article. What was the question?
Will you have time to look into adding CSI sanity tests for the raw block feature?
Oh, yeah, I started work on that, and I have kind of a half-done patch. The problem I ran into is just it kind of doubles the size of the code in a sense, and it feels gross, the obvious way to do it, and so I was trying to think if there's a more clever way to do it. But yeah, that is on my plate.
Okay. Awesome.
Is anyone else working on the CSI sanity tests and trying to figure out a way to make it easier to add new tests without just copy pasting? Because that's my big concern, is that there's a huge amount of copy pasting that's gone on there, and it's getting to an unsustainable place.
I see. Yeah, I don't think anyone is working on that.
Okay, because I felt like I needed to take a step back and think about a way to reuse test code better so that we don't just keep copy pasting like crazy.
Yeah, I kind of see what you're talking about. I think in the past what I've done is like if there's any test cases that are like all doing the same thing, I just put them in a function. And it might be multiple test cases will call the same function, but maybe pass in some different parameters.
Yeah, that's kind of the approach I was going towards, but it still felt gross, and I wondered if I could do better. I don't know, but yeah, I'll sign up for that.
Cool, thank you. I will also I'll reach out to Masaki and see if he can continue adding more E2E tests to Kubernetes.
Cool.
All right. So that's raw block. After that is migration.
Yeah, so basically the main things there are the inline. So we had a good discussion. Thanks for the suggestion around adding a flag to the spec. I'll try that out. Most likely it'll work out. Yeah, so hopefully we'll have a PR with all the inline changes by early next week. And the other thing that's ongoing is the resizing work. So that's also progress.
All right. Thanks for the update. All right. And looks like Patrick already gave an update on the CI. And then I think, John, you're working on the iSCSI driver.
Yep. So that's still up, ready to go, waiting for reviews.
Okay. Let's see. Which one?
You already assigned it? You already assigned it to Wogman?
Oh, Matt Wong. Okay. Yeah. I will go ping him and see if he has time to take a look at that.
Okay. And I think Ben said he'd also try and find some time to take a look if you could.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
So John, the good news is it compiles. I integrated it with my code and I compiled it and it ran. So yeah, I just need to go to the next level deeper.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great because like I have zero iSCSI knowledge, so me reviewing it might not be the most useful thing. So
I think I'm also working on, I think might help is I'm working on a iSCSI-D, the external driver that we used to have that did the provisioning and everything. I'm working on a replacement for that. So once that's up, I think that'll help too, because then it'll be really easy to deploy an iSCSI setup to test it. So.
Very cool. All right. Thank you so much.
Yep.
And then last thing was the which one is this? Is this the cloning?
Yep. And so I updated the spreadsheet, but I should probably update this too. The implementation PR is up in the Kubernetes repo and also in the external provisioner CSI repo. I have
okay.
There too.
Excellent. Maybe we should actually, so this sounds like the cloning will kind of require a number of different tasks across different repositories. It might be good to create like a project for it so you can kind of group everything together into one place.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look at doing that. I think I tried that before and I got stuck. I might have to ping you on Slack.
Okay, yeah, sure. But like kind of like if you see here how we've grouped like raw block all into one project and we put all the tasks there and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so the thing I think I got hung up on was trying to figure out how to import references from other projects. But I'll look at it again.
Yeah, it's not really intuitive. Basically what you do is you just click on this plus here and then you just copy the URL.
Oh.
Or you paste the URL here.
Okay.
It's not the most obvious thing. So
yeah. Well, there's a fancy feature on add cards that you can actually just pull in PRs and issues. And I was like, oh, can I do this across repos? And
oh yeah.
there's documentation out there that says you can. I just can't figure out how to make it work. But I'll just
It's
use the URL.
yeah, I think so. So you can do it across repos if it's in the same organization. So
Oh, that's
like
why. Yeah, that
yeah,
makes sense.
like if you
Yeah,
see here for like this Kubernetes 115 project here, I've linked to like all the sidecar repositories.
gotcha.
But you can't actually link across
Organizations.
organizations.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That explains it. Cool. Okay, I'll take a look at. I'll try and find some time this afternoon to kind of update those and get that. But yeah, those ones ended up being pretty simple. So that'll be good.
All right. Excellent. Thank you for the update. Okay. So I think that's all I have for 115. Are there any other topics anyone wants to talk about? All right.
I guess if nobody has anything, I'll chime in. So actually, I'll update it in the cards. Never mind. That's good. I'm good.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right. Thanks everyone. Have a good Friday.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.